Your attention, please. Paul and Alex are required to proceed to the gate immediately.
What?
No way.
What is happening here?
This is the last call for the Layovers podcast.
Really?
Come on, man. This is our thing. We got this.
Oh, yeah.
And we made it.
Of course, geeks.
Flight 85 to Busuanga. Hi, Alex.
Where?
Well, starting the year by flying to like a little-known airport in the middle of nowhere in the south of the Philippines. I was there last week. We're recording today, January 10th, 2019. Happy New Year.
Yeah, first episode of the year. That's very exciting.
After failing to record almost for the entire month of December. That was a catastrophe.
December was busy, not just because of all of the usual Christmas shenanigans, but just generally, I think, for everybody. So we tried. God knows we tried.
Yeah, we tried actually twice. We had 2 dates set up. The first one was because of shenanigans in travels. I had the last trip of the year for me. My flight to Geneva was cancelled. I'll come to that in a minute. And we had actually planned to record whilst I was in Geneva. I had my microphone and everything, but obviously, instead of taking just an hour to go to Geneva, it took me 9 hours.
That's
and then everything was, I'll get there in a minute. And then the second date we had planned for was the 31st of December, saying, to cap the year off. And that time was purely me. I just couldn't make it. And then we didn't record. And we got, Alex, so many messages of people telling us, where are the episodes? We're so sorry, guys. And obviously that also means that we have like a lot to cover. We won't be doing that in this episode only because there's way too many. I think I've done 18 flights since we last recorded.
Wow.
Including the one I mentioned to Japan, which was fascinating. And I'm not going to cover it on this episode because it's way too long. Otherwise, we won't have time. So that will be for probably the next one. Hopefully, we're going to try. This is one of our resolutions for 2019 to keep up with that every 2 weeks release.
You did pretty well last year.
Yeah, which is quite amazing because we do travel quite extensively. It was for both of us a record year last year.
Yeah. It was full on year. I was ready to be done by the end of it.
You know what? When I took my first flight this year, which was the 1st of January at 8:30 on the 1st of January, I was at T3 at Heathrow, flying Cathay Pacific towards Asia. I'll also mention that flight later. And I was sitting in the Cathay lounge, and I was like, why am I flying today? I just want to not fly for a little bit longer. It was the first flight in years, for how comfortable it was, that I wasn't 100% in it. I was like, I wish I could stay home. I don't know how to explain that feeling.
No, I felt exactly the same way when I had my last flight of the year. I'd rather have been at home and not in an airplane, which is very, very unusual for me.
Yes. I mean, I had because, at the end of the year, you have all these people, sharing how many flights they've done, how many miles they've done. And there was this friend of mine, he lives between Australia and New York. And I think he's done 450K or something. And both of us, we've done a lot, but this is staggering. And I'm like, I don't think I want that life.
No.
I love flying, and we do love flying.
No, I don't want that either. I think it's everybody has their reasons and their own kind of personal limits for this type of thing. But this year, I think I found my ceiling of what's manageable, what's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I don't want to beat the record. And remember, guys, last year, I only started my first flight at the end of February, so I had a month and a half without flying, and I still beat my record. I don't want to do that this year. I mean, we both said that actually at the beginning of 2018.
Of course. That's always the way, though, isn't it?
And congratulations, because you released 9 or 10 episodes of Attaché last.
Yeah, it was a lot, and we've got a lot more in the can as well. It's an unusual situation where we have so much backlogged footage that it's getting difficult to manage. But there we are. It's a nice problem to have, I suppose. Well, nice problem for me, not so nice for Greg. I
Yeah, he didn't have any holidays. He's just editing your stuff, right?
Constantly.
But the past few ones were amazing. And I know I'm not going to reveal them, obviously, but I know the ones that are coming up, including ones that are coming up and are not filmed yet, and they all look amazing. So I'm hoping you're going to still do 9 or 10 this year, because I think it's a nice schedule. Not to do like 20, because that would be insane, but 9 is
Yeah, we'll definitely
perfect.
do that many or release that many this year for sure.
Yeah, and then he's going to release 55, and he's never going to be... Don't complain, Alex. Come on. You love it. Okay, so let's start with that. In no particular chronological order, I arrive at Heathrow. I think it was, let me check, the 19th of December. I was going for a meeting to meet IATA in Geneva. So that's the irony, because I was meeting the airline industry in Geneva. And I arrive at 7 a.m. at Heathrow T2. And as soon as I stepped out of the car, I get a notification from one of these obscure apps that I never use. Your flight is canceled. And I'm like, no. So I step into the terminal, and then I get a notification from TripIt. Your flight is canceled. Please call the airline. I immediately take a look at the board, and lucky me, at that point I am, because I just stepped in, I'm in front of ticketing. So I jump into ticketing. I'm like, there's no way. I need to be attending that meeting. It starts 3 hours later. And yeah, well, the flight was canceled. The earlier flight, I learned, was canceled as well. So there's, I had the second, they don't tell me the explanation. The guy at the ticketing kind of says, it's a technical problem, which means everything and nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm with my Google Flights website, and I say, okay, this is the next one I can take. Lufthansa. And there's no seats. He looks, and he ended up finding me a flight via Frankfurt. My goodness sakes, I wanted to avoid Frankfurt.
I just love that. I love that we spent so long on the last episode talking about what a crap hole it is, and then the universe decides that you need to experience it one last time for good measure.
Since the previous flights obviously had been cancelled, there were already a lot of people rebooked. There was very, very few seats. And we're talking like just, the Thursday. So on the Friday, basically people starting flying for their holidays. So obviously all the flights are full. I'm very lucky, because probably I was senator, so I was prioritized to get a seat. But that was not the end of it, because, of course, then my flight leaves like 3 hours later, so I'm already late from a meeting, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to go via Frankfurt. I arrive in Frankfurt. We're late. We're delayed by 30 minutes. My layover should have been 50 minutes. I'm already like, no way. With Frankfurt, in 20 minutes, I elbow people out of the bus, because obviously there was a bus. I run. I pass Schengen, etc., etc. And then obviously what happens is that as soon as I arrive in front of the gate, they say, well, we don't have a bus to get you to the aircraft. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a bus? So apparently there were a strike of bus drivers on the ground at Frankfurt. So for like 2 hours, we actually couldn't get to our aircraft, which was waiting for us on the apron.
Oh my God.
So basically I took 9 hours to arrive in Geneva. I remember when I was at that desk at the gate, there was this other passenger really furious. And I understood by overhearing his conversation that he actually was on that earlier Swiss flight that had been canceled. So not only he waited for 5.5 hours at Heathrow, but then it had no connection because of that bus thing at Frankfurt, and was like shouting at the poor. I mean, at the end of the day, what they can do, right? So it was, thank God, out of like the more than 100 and whatever flights I've done, it's the last one of the year, but still, it was really a disaster. Interestingly, I don't think I've mentioned it, but interestingly, Swiss had a PR release earlier in 2018 saying that they've worked with Amadeus to do auto rebooking. Maybe we mentioned it. Well, supposedly, when you have such an occurrence, in 30 seconds, you can be auto rebooked.
Yeah.
It didn't happen because clearly when I went to the ticketing desk, there was nothing such as like they were looking for a flight to me. So I don't really know how that works because I don't know. The technology supposedly is good, but no.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it does the bulk of passengers where there's an obvious one, but for outliers or for I don't know. It's a weird one that it didn't do it, or maybe they haven't implemented it system wide yet.
Yeah. A few good things is first, when I was waiting for my flight at a Senator Lounge at T2 at Heathrow, because it was a Christmas period, they gave all the passengers this gingerbread cookie, which was really cute. And, I think you replied, these are the little things that are not costly, but change everything. And really, you know what? I was not pissed off because it was like, oh, whatever, I'm like that in my daily life. I'm like, oh, I'll make the best of it. But still, that little thing, which had nothing to do with my cancellation, was really nice.
It is nice. I think it adds a little bit of personality and a human touch to an otherwise very kind of procedural experience.
Yeah, exactly. Swiss, I've tried getting compensation. I'm still trying. They denied me my first request.
On what grounds?
Unexpected flight safety shortcoming.
That's their fault.
Yeah, but I mean, because, if you live in the EU or if you have a flight coming or flying from the EU, compensation kicks in and the rules have been tightened now that there have been some court rulings. If it's a technical fault, it's not an extraordinary circumstance, so the airline owes you money. But they didn't say technical, they say unexpected flight safety shortcoming.
What a load.
Thus we can...
Come on.
I'm sure they have like a dedicated team finding special wording to avoid being exactly in the wording that would kick in the compensation. I don't want to do. Honestly, the ticket was not expensive, so I'm like whatever. But for the principal, I'm going to reply. I'm going to say, guys, just what is this wording that doesn't mean anything? At least make a commercial gesture. If they were to offer me even 5,000 miles, which is worth nothing for them, I would say, oh, whatever, okay, fine. Because honestly, again, the money is almost nothing. But I mean, come on, I'm not going to let them be. I mean, no way.
No. That's ridiculous.
Another very interesting thing is that, very smart, that shows that Lufthansa is very good on their technology, is as soon as I was rebooked by the guy at ticketing, automatically without me doing anything, I started getting notifications from within the Lufthansa app on my phone. So that's really well done because I didn't have to add to booking or whatever. I would get the gate number, the message, your plane is ready to board and stuff like that. It's really, it's cool. How it should be. That's how it should be. Oh yeah, the last one I forgot to mention when to show how Frankfurt is crazy. So when we ended up finally being in that bus, there was this shenanigan. I don't know. The driver was he someone who was not being on strike and was he taunted by others? But we start running with the bus and suddenly the guy pulls the brakes, middle fingers someone that was outside of, I couldn't see who he was middle fingering. I was like, what's going on? Then accelerates, does a 360 with the bus. I'm not kidding. He accelerates at a 360, like still middle fingering that guy. I don't know if that guy was in the center of that circle he was doing, and then continued to our aircraft. I was like, what is going on here?
That's weird.
All of the passengers in the bus were looking at each other. What is going on here? We're not going to make him angrier by telling him anything, but...
Yeah. Jeez. That's kind of weird.
Oh, well, yeah. To sum the experience up at Frankfurt, the lady at the desk who was boarding us, so scanning our boarding passes, she was clearly Greek. And she looked at me and said in Greek, well, that airport. She knows that airport is... Oh, well. Flight back with Swiss this time was not cancelled, but I'm in the Senator Lounge at Geneva waiting to fly back for my last leg of my last trip, going home for Christmas, and suddenly delays. And I'm like, what's going on? And you send me the message, well, there are drones hovering Gatwick. That was insane.
It was the most bizarre story in our world for a long, long time, and we still haven't heard the end of this story. I can't get over it. I can't get over how crazy this was, that this quote-unquote drone, and I say that for a reason, shut down the second busiest single runway airport in the world for over a day.
Yeah, I think 36 hours.
Yeah. 150,000 people, maybe even more than that, were stranded or their flights were canceled or delayed. They were camping out in airports. The military was brought in. The public transport infrastructure collapsed. It was unbelievable.
On the day that, because it was a Friday 20th, on the day that one of the busiest day ever because Christmas fell on, that would be the start of the week for people getting their holidays. So there was like literally the airports were rammed and nobody was flying out. It was crazy.
It was unprecedented, and they initially wanted to shoot this thing down, and then thought, no, that would be unsafe because you never know where the
bullets
the bullet are going to land. And then, they opened up the airport, and then the stupid thing came back. This all happened at night, I believe. I don't think there was any occurrence where this drone was spotted during the day.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, we don't know the full extent of the story, but it's drone sightings. So somebody will say there's a drone, probably an official, I'm not saying somebody, a passenger. And then, of course, the regulation of all the airports in the UK is that you shut down the airport for 30 minutes to make sure that whatever sighting is gone. And then as soon as this 30 minutes window would close, there would then be another drone sighting. Was it like a public, hysteria? Was it actually drone sightings? Then, because there were repeated occurrences, they decided to basically close the airport for 3 hours, and 6 hours, and 12 hours, and forever.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Yeah, and it got stranger and stranger and stranger. The airlines were really suffering because there's nothing that they could do. There were flights being diverted that were inbound from overseas. A lot of flights were canceled all over the world, so you had passengers stuck, crews out of hours stuck, and the Sussex police, whose jurisdiction Gatwick falls into, were criticized for how they handled it. But then there was that bizarre statement by, I think it was somebody from Sussex, or was it from somebody from the government, that said, there may have not actually been a drone after all.
Yeah, exactly.
So what is it? I mean, was there a drone? There was never actually a picture or confirmed evidence that there was.
There's one blurry video that circulated, but you're not even sure it was filmed over Gatwick. There's no authenticity. The police probably knows better than us, but that's why I was talking about public hysteria. It's like everybody says, "Oh, there's a terrorist," and "Oh, there's a terrorist," and everybody says that, and suddenly people start running and people start panicking. Was it that, or was it actually one drone? I don't know. There's even the Sussex police also said some of the drones spotted at Gatwick Airport could have been police drones looking for other drones.
I'm speechless. I really am, because I think this is a dangerous precedent, and actually a confirmed precedent, and we'll come on to that later, I'm sure, that a not even actually real drone can bring an airport to its knees for 36 hours is disturbing, to say the least. And there were all of these conspiracy theories floating around that the drone operator, the most likely place was for them to be inside of the airport with access to areas that the public wouldn't have, because that would give them the range that they needed, that it was a coordinated effort because the battery life is only 30 minutes, and it needed to be a custom-built one because off-the-shelf drones couldn't. Yeah,
at least it was a Pro one and not something you could buy at DJI. So it was one, not a Phantom 4 or whatever. It was stuff that is used for aerial photography or professional uses like architecture. But I mean, they all say that, but we haven't actually had any news from this. So we don't even know.
Nothing other than, as we are wont to do in this country, sadly, this poor couple who were aviation and drone enthusiasts nearby were arrested on suspicion of being the perpetrators and then released without charge and exonerated, but they'd already been dragged through the mud and the courts of public opinion. So their lives are over, if not their Christmas. So that was an infuriating postscript. Well, it's not even a postscript because the story's not over. I cannot get over the bizarreness of this story.
Yeah, I have absolutely the same feeling. It's really, really bizarre. And we haven't heard that happened like almost a month ago now. We haven't heard anything besides having the other day a drone sighting at Heathrow that shut down the airport for like only 30 minutes because thank God there was no this hysteria this time. I mean, I say hysteria. Maybe actually there was people, at least maybe one person or two people, maybe they were actually drones, but we don't know. What is for sure that it kicked in an entire debate here in the UK. So now the government has given, airports more leeway to actually try to beat those drones. So they're going to they are extending the exclusion zone to 5 kilometers. which is great. But at the end of the day, there was already an exclusion zone before, and that still didn't halt people from, if that really happened, from people doing it. At the end of the day, it's one thing you're not supposed to. Yeah, you were already not supposed to fly over an airport, which, by the way, goes into the direction of having a pro drone, because if you currently buy any of the drones that are available on the market, I mentioned DJI, but there's other brands, they have geo-fencing built into the software. You can hack probably, obviously, but you simply cannot fly in restricted areas. It will just not allow you to.
Yeah, it won't even take off. I think, if you're willing to hack it, then you've got malicious intent anyway.
Absolutely.
So that brings another layer of the conversation. But it's so strange to me that this whole story has gone dark. There's no news. There's nothing, no confirmation. No one has come out and said, actually, no one actually saw a drone. And there's been no, at least that I've seen, anybody official coming out saying, these are the lessons that we've learned. This is what we're doing as a result. And then day before yesterday, there was one at Heathrow.
Or at least a sighting again, because I haven't seen, maybe, because I'm so busy, I haven't seen a video or a picture, but there was news that they shut down the runway to make sure that there was nothing. And after half an hour, again, that regulation, they reopened it. So that was not the big catastrophe that happened at Gatwick, but still. So the airports in the UK were given the ability to buy military-grade technologies to try to tackle. So there's jamming systems and intercept systems as well. They probably haven't bought them yet, or are they in the process of? Because that just happened like 3 weeks ago. They also will enforce stricter registration. So if you want to buy a drone between 250 grams and 20 kilos, you will need to register. You already had an obligation to register, but I think the threshold was higher. But all this is great, but you have already a lot of drones that were bought pre-regulation that are out there.
I was just about to mention that.
And it's like everything. If I buy a drone, let's say in Hong Kong, where I was just last week, and I come back, who's going to tell me to register? It's I need to be honest and do it. But, I didn't buy it in a shop in the UK, so I don't know.
And also, if you're building one from scratch, which a lot of people have the ability to do, then it doesn't make any difference.
What is for sure is that the incidents involving drones have increased, and some were real ones. Actually, they were I think a month and a half ago, there was the closest ever encounter. There was a Virgin Atlantic that came 10 feet into crashing into a drone that was over Clapham, so very close to where I live. It's one of the most used landing pathways to Heathrow. I think you used to live there.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
They say in 2013, obviously there was no drones back then, there was 0 incidents, and compared to more than 100 in 2018. Again, are those hundreds actually all real sightings? But like you say, what is disturbing is that how do you make sure there's actually a drone? Will they use radar technology? They're buying military-grade stuff, so probably there will be better ability for airports to make sure there's no drones. But it was one of these scenarios, I think we talked about it when it happened, that I would have never guessed that something like that would happen. Shutting down an airport by just, taunting someone with a drone, not even mentioning there were none to start with, but even if you had one, being able to fly it for 10 minutes, shutting down the airport, then disappearing, and flying it again and disappearing, and flying it again and disappearing. That's actually a very effective way to shutting down an airport.
It really
Low
is.
cost.
I don't. Yeah, I think it's, and that my fear is that even if it didn't exist and it was just a figment of a lot of hysteria, there are people out there who would have gone, you know what, that's a pretty amazing power move that you can do.
That would be the equivalent of the gilet jaune in France. I'm kidding.
Well, you joke, but it's a pretty effective. Because we all, when Gatwick was shut down, we all assumed that, not all of us, I assumed that it was going to be an environmental protest.
Yeah, me too.
And we still don't know if that was the case or not. But if it hasn't happened as a result, then it will in the future. I can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, it gives, I'll come to some news about Heathrow in a few minutes, but it gives some, ideas to those who don't want extra flights, who don't want extra noise, who don't want, extra pollution over the air, over London or Birmingham or Manchester, whatever. And, and the sad thing, because I witnessed one of those guys, the sad thing is because it was over a very, very, very busy period, means that there were no ability for airlines, it was not their fault, to rebook you because all their flights were full. It was Christmas, New Year's Eve period. This guy next to me, that was talking to ticketing. And remember, we're the 20th of December, and the lady tells him, the next flight available for you is the 29th of December. Because it was, there's no room, all the flights are full at this period of the year. So the poor dude was basically
Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Jeez.
Yeah, I've looked up what the other countries have done just out of curiosity, and South Korea and France use shoulder-mounted guns that fire nets. Then again, you still have to find the drone in the first place. The US and China use anti-drone lasers that incapacitates the drone. And the best one is the Netherlands. They use eagles, actual eagles that are specially trained to capture and intercept.
That's pretty cool.
That's really cool. I love that.
I think I've seen videos in Japan as well where they have a drone equipped with various tools and nets and other things they can. But if there's an even half competent drone pilot on the other side, then they're just going to move.
I think South Korea started this not because of airports, but because they wanted to avoid drones flying over the Olympic Stadium during the Olympics, and Japan having its own Olympics coming up. I'm sure they also are testing technologies because that's what they want to avoid at first, out of terrorist concerns, obviously. But yeah, it's, wow, crazy. Yeah. Extraordinary. So did you get a drone for Christmas?
No, you know what? I have a DJI Mavic, which is a great thing, but it's getting harder and I can't fly it around my in-laws, anywhere near my in-laws. I won't even take off because there's an airport, reasonably close to them. So I don't fly it nearly as much as I used to.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I didn't buy one, is that, first of all, I think we mentioned it as well, like episodes ago, most of the places we go to are cities. I mean, I know you've been, thank God, to non-cities, especially for attaché. You've been to outside of cities in Japan, so you have more freedom. But any city in the world, I mean, maybe not Karachi, or because they haven't, I don't know. It's just impossible. So I'm like, I'm going to carry this thing around and never going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
When I was in the Maldives, no drones because of privacy reasons. They don't want you to film the other guys in their room whilst you were actually, enjoying a holiday. And I get it. It makes actually a lot of sense. So at the end of the day, where are you going to use a drone? Like in the middle of the mountains of the Himalayas? But I'm not a very good hiker, so. Anyway, back to Heathrow, to more UK news. Sorry, guys, we'll promise you some other news about not the UK in a few. Heathrow is proposing its biggest flight path changes since 1946. It's quite staggering. The consultation just opened 2 days ago. The reason I know about it is because I live... you remember, guys, when we started the podcast, I was living under one of the busiest, if not the busiest flight path to land at Heathrow, and I moved a little bit south, and the new flight path actually would bring the planes over my head. But it's interesting that this is not only forecasting the third runway that could open in 150 years. It's also that even without the new runway, this new scheme will add 25,000 flights a year, which will require, though, the regulator to uncap the current flight cap. I think it's 480,000 flights per year at Heathrow. It's quite significant, 25,000 more, because it really adds. I mean, I don't know where they're going to put them, because we both said that, every single terminal seems completely over capacity already, but I mean, still. And the thing they're using is called independent parallel approaches, which allows Heathrow to use mixed use. So you could... right now you have one runway which is to land and one runway which is to depart, basically, and they alternate depending on the wind and to avoid noise. The new scheme will allow to use, for instance, the departing runway as a landing runway for very quick bursts, and that will reduce the distance between flights landing by using technology, et cetera, et cetera. So you don't even require a third runway to have these.
Yeah, it's restricted to certain types of aircraft and airlines because they have to have, I was just reading this article yesterday. They have to have a certain type of approach function. I know all BAUs, when, like you said, when I used to live under the flight path, I would use my airband radio and you could hear them talking about this very specific ultra precision approach, and only the planes that have this will be able to use it, or this new function, and it's going to take a few years to implement anyway. So it's I mean, cool, I think, but as you say, like, where the hell are those planes going to go? There's no more space. There's no terminal.
Yeah.
There's no parking spaces. Who knows what they're going to do with the old Terminal 1? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a problem that it feels like a Band-Aid on a massive wound.
Yeah, because once they actually open the third runway, there's an extra terminal that is going to be built next to it, and that will, at the end, increase the capacity of Heathrow to 130 million passengers. Currently is 80 million, and we're like a 79,999,999, so we're just right there. But yeah, well, at the end of the day, it's the busiest airport in the world in terms of, I don't remember now, international passenger or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And they need the capacity. And you know what? Although I live under one of the 3 proposed new flight paths that will have this new type of approach, and the planes will be 1,200 feet over my house. I will hear them. Not the 350s, but the 747s. I think at the end of the day, you need to do that. Otherwise, there's no way for Heathrow to grow, and it has to. I'm sure my neighbors will kill me for saying that.
Well, no. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
Did you fly to Lisbon via Heathrow, or was it via Gatwick?
It was Heathrow, yeah. It was Heathrow, Terminal 3. So it was a BA flying out of Terminal 3, and
so.
Qantas I went to the Cathay Lounge, and I sat there, and I had my Dan Mien noodles, and just relaxed in the wonderful salubrious environment that is the Cathay Lounge, both business and first. And I thought, I got there early because traffic was a lot lighter than I thought it was going to be. And I thought, you know what? For science, I'm going to go and check out the Qantas Lounge. So I left the Cathay Lounge and went in, and there wasn't a Qantas flight for quite a long time. So the place was absolutely empty. And I was greeted by a distracted lounge receptionist, I guess is probably the word. And he said, yeah, there's not really any food at the moment downstairs, so just go upstairs. And it's downstairs is pretty cool looking, which is almost all like a sit-down restaurant type place. And I went upstairs, and there were hardly any windows. The Cathay Lounge is
full
floor-to-ceiling windows. It's certainly, in the business class one as well. But the first class lounge is half of it is floor to ceiling windows. There's hardly any windows in the Qantas Lounge. The food was actually, I have to say this: the food, there were a lot of healthy options, which I really appreciated, but it was kind of dull. There was nothing outstanding about that lounge at all. Nothing. There was no. I mean. For those of you where this is important, there was no champagne. There was just Australian sparkling wine, which was fine. But I know a lot of you judge a lounge by the quality of its champagne. The service was friendly and fine, but they were like moving furniture around and hoovering, and like I said, it was between Qantas flights, so there was quite a lot of. It didn't feel particularly relaxing, and I lasted about half an hour before I went back to the Cathay Lounge. Is it better than sitting in the departure lounge at T3? Of course it is. But
especially T3, which is not great. Yeah,
which isn't great. It's like a big cattle pen. But yeah, there was nothing special about this lounge. If you've been there before and I've missed something, guys, tell me, because I just couldn't see why anybody would pick that lounge over the Cathay Lounge.
Especially because they're next to each other, so you don't even have an advantage over a gate. Yeah.
The only one I haven't been into, the One World lounges. I've been in the BA one. It's not great either. But
no, it's not.
It's pretty old. Is the American Flagship Lounge, or is it a flagship lounge?
I don't know, but I haven't been. I've
Admiral's
seen it
Club.
Many times, obviously, but yeah, Admiral Club. I haven't been it.
I should go because I've on the show I've talked about how great those lounges are in North America. I would be interested to try one of the ones here in the UK as well. So, but yeah, the Qantas one was nothing to write home about.
Thanks to you, actually, and I'll come to that at the end of the show. When I was flying Cathay, I saw the Qantas. I said, "Yeah, Alex warned me. No way, I'm not going in."
Yeah. I think it's a no-brainer now. So next time I'm there, I don't know when I will be flying out of T3 again, but I will try the American one and let you know.
Well, I'm flying from T3 tomorrow morning, so
there you go.
Yeah, but I was planning to go very last minute. I'm just going to Barcelona with BA, but now that you've said that, maybe if I go not last minute, maybe I will actually go there.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I'd be interested to know what it's like.
And I'll report back. So, what about BA then? The actual flight?
It was fine. I've been thinking a lot about this since this actually happened, and I've been hesitant to even speak of it. But there was an interesting incident on board that I'm very sensitive to, and I'll explain why. But before any flight I take, I always pull up turbulence forecast and look at the weather en route. I'm just interested more than anything because there's literally nothing you can do with that information. The plane is going to go where the dispatchers have told it to go. But I always think it's interesting. And sometimes I plan, if I see, heavy turbulence forecast across the Atlantic at a particular point, I'll make sure I eat in good time so that I'm not like spilling stuff all over the place or the meal service gets suspended. And I noticed on this one, I was just looking at the pictures because I always take screenshots so that I can look at it in flight. There was 3 really strong jet streams going from west to east across Europe, particularly across the UK. One was north of us, so that was really no factor. But there was a couple of ones that looked pretty good. When the captain came on and gave his pre-flight briefing, which was detailed and friendly and interesting, he didn't really mention anything about it. But we hit unbelievably violent turbulence over, what would it be? Sort of northern Spain or just north of Spain. Really, really bad turbulence. The flight attendants were asked to take their seats. It was that violent, really jarring, physical turbulence, not rolling, not juddering, not bouncy road. It was like somebody had grabbed the plane and was shaking it hard. You could hear it as well. That type of stuff used to bother me. It doesn't anymore because, like I said, there's nothing you can do about it. The captain came on, which I think indicates how bad it was, said there's nothing to worry about. We're talking to air traffic control. We're talking to other planes around us. There was no smooth air within 5,000 feet of, up or down. So we're just going to have to ride it out. We'll do our best. About 10 minutes after that, they released the cabin crew, but everybody else was told to stay seated. And the cabin crew were clearing away the meal service, which was coming towards the tail end when the first turbulence hit, and then more turbulence hit. And again, with the same violence. It was even more violent. And there was stuff flying everywhere, plates and glasses smashing all over the place, people screaming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And one of the cabin crew fell next to me and had a tray of glass. The glasses smashed everywhere. And I don't know if she was relatively new. Probably not because she was doing Club Europe service, but I don't know if that's how it works. And the plane was shaking. She couldn't get up. So I helped her into the empty seat next to me and just said, sit. And, asked her if she was okay. She didn't really say anything. And then her colleagues came to help her. And then things settled down a little bit to the point where the crew were able to go and clean up a little bit. And this is where it got, I think I was the only person on the plane that noticed this, but because I've had the same thing happen to me. I've talked about this ad nauseum. I used to have a terrible fear of flying for years. Really, really crippling fear of flying. The roots of which
we'll dedicate an episode about that this year. We have been in touch with people to talk about it.
Yeah. And this flight attendant was obviously spooked because she did things that I used to do, like leaning over me to look out of the window to see what the cause of the turbulence was, or if she could see if there was going to be more turbulence. That is classic fear of flying behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Leaning over passengers to look at the overhead display to see how much longer was left on the flight when she could have asked a colleague or looked at her watch, and then she disappeared for the rest of the flight.
Maybe that she never had that before. Like you said, that could be an indicator that she's relatively new.
Yeah, and I felt nothing but sympathy for her.
Yeah, empathy.
It's the worst feeling of helplessness and distress, and I did feel awful for her. So, I'm guessing I've got no confirmation. Of course, I don't. But having been there before, those were not red flags. That makes it sound like it's a negative thing, but those were the symptoms and signs of
Indicators,
someone who was freaked out. And I felt so bad for her. And again, I was hesitant to talk about this, but I don't think. I think she remains reasonably anonymous, even from that reasonably detailed description. But it was a hell of a way to end my year of flying.
Wow, yeah. Was that on the way back or on the way to Lisbon?
That was on the way there. And on the way back, actually, it was smooth as silk. It was smooth as silk. So, it just shows what... And that was exactly 24 hours later.
Wow. Well, you know what? Was it as violent as you know? But since we're talking about this, on my way back so I flew Manila, Hong Kong, Heathrow just 2 days ago. And from Hong Kong to Heathrow, obviously, when you reach the high terrains of China, it's always shaky. There's no way to avoid it. And they knew that. And the captain came on the PA at the very beginning of the flight and said, we're going to try to avoid it, but there might be some shakiness. We see in it. I didn't do what you had done, so I didn't actually screenshot it, even though actually the Wi-Fi was awesome. But I didn't go there. I didn't actually check. And I could see on the moving map that we're avoiding the high terrain. We're on the north of Xiamen, just below the Gobi Desert. So before Mongolia, if you actually look on the map, guys, it's right west of Beijing. And suddenly started to do exactly you mentioned. So all the, at that point in the flight, although it was a day flight, all the shades were closed because some people were sleeping, and it started moving like insane for a little while, just like 3 minutes. And I said, okay, whatever. The crew hadn't been asked to seat at that point. And I remember I had asked like 10 minutes before for a coffee. And she comes to me and says, oh, here's your coffee. She gives me the coffee. And at the exact moment she gives me coffee, it starts again.
Oh, God.
So I'm spilling the coffee everywhere. Obviously, I mean, it's okay. It's just coffee, whatever. It went, I cannot compare. I don't know if it was as violent, but it went for 20 minutes, super hard. Look, the crew was asked to sit down for 20-25 minutes. It was moving, and I was trying to drink a little bit of the coffee to avoid, because I didn't know where to put it, right? It was like, I don't know if it actually is better, but I tend, when that kind of things happen, to hold the drink in my hand to compensate for the movement.
Yeah, you almost have like a built-in
gimbal.
A gimbal, that's it, yeah.
But I did my best. And the one time I tried to take a sip, obviously, massive one, and I get some on my face. I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, no biggie. And I could see the behavior you mentioned, not from a crew, but I could see many people, opening the window shade, taking a look outside, which was bright and sunny and nothing, because you cannot see it. We're not in a storm or anything. And I could see at the end of the 25 minutes, to make the story short, some passengers really shaken up, and we had still, probably 9 hours to go. So it's not it's not reassuring. If you're freaked out at that point, it's really not reassuring. It was my biggest, strongest turbulence in 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
It was really, 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 really big. I mean, I was like, because I'm like you, I used not to be maybe as fearful as flying as you, but these kind of things used to disturb me a lot when I was younger, and I would get like, oh, what's going on? Now I was like, what, the hell I'm gonna do, right? So I was, smiling and trying to watch my movie, was shaking. Like my very quiet movie became a documentary, like shaky camera.
Yeah. That region of China is always bad. You've got the mountain. I can't remember, what are they called? The mountain rolls or something. The air coming down off the mountains. I remember a Cathay pilot. I sat next to him on a flight from Joburg to Hong Kong, and we were talking about turbulence because they'd had to do a lot of evasive maneuvering around thunderstorms. And he said that when they track over the plateau of Tibet, you're going just north of it, skirting around the outside of it. He said it often felt, at least in the flight deck, like somebody had grabbed the tail and was just lifting it up and then dropping it down. It wasn't violent, but it was disconcerting. Yeah. And he said, that region is if it's not that, it's jet streams. So It is what it is.
It is what it is. And kudos, because like you, the pilot came many times on the PA to reassure passengers, to tell them it was okay, that there was nothing we could do. They tried their best to avoid, again, on the moving map, so that they were going eastwards where they would usually go on that route, probably avoiding worse turbulences, but there was simply nothing you can do. But he was really, with his quiet, very reassuring voice, explaining what was happening, so I think that's great. But at the end of the day, if you're freaked out, you're freaked out.
Yeah.
And
it's not fun. There's no way you can go. Yeah. So, wow.
And I was lucky to have my backpack with me because I changed t-shirts and everything. So, 5 minutes later, at the end of it, I was fine and I was not spilled with coffee anymore. Yeah. But really, for me, it was the irony of the coincidence she gave me, because she, the service is so good at Cathay that she really wanted to give me that coffee because I requested like maybe 15 minutes before. And that was the worst freaking timing possible. Right. Like, what am I going to do with this coffee? And I was looking, is there like a storage I can spill the coffee into? No, nothing. Anyway. Oh, well. We'll cover, guys, Lisbon in a forthcoming show, because I was there almost 2 months ago now. Time flies, but it seems like we said in a previous episode, all these flights are mingling in our minds. And you've been there, so it's an interesting airport to cover. So we'll do that. So I'm not going to ask about Lisbon, but is there anything remarkable or non-remarkable about these flights with BA?
Well, I think the only thing, and those who have flown to Lisbon with BA will know this, is that you almost always have a remote stand, which is a little frustrating. But I think Lisbon Airport is reasonably at its capacity.
Yeah, and you just gave me the perfect leading for the next set of news, which is still about the UK. Sorry, guys, for those who do not live here, but it's very interesting still. Is that I think the reason we have a remote stand in Lisbon in many other airports is because, not being part of Schengen, they have to take us to different routing to go into, and we're still not either a big bird coming from the US or from Asia. So that's why we're very, very often unlucky, including in Germany and other places, and we get these, because airports within the Schengen area are built for 80% Schengen people, and we are like outliers, and they have to bring us somewhere. So
God, I don't even want to think about what's going to happen in a few months.
That's like what, 3 months? It's coming very quickly. So BA first, IAG, because you shared that piece of news with me yesterday. So they had done all these setups to make sure that they will still get the open skies agreements that applies within the EU to being able to fly within the EU. But apparently it might not be working at all, because they make a differentiation between the actual people who hold the power. So, sorry, because maybe some of you don't know, in order to be considered a EU-based company, your shareholder setup has to be 50 plus 1% EU-based. Of course, when the UK gets out, suddenly that shareholder balance changes. So what they were trying to do, IAG, is to maintain this shareholder by doing a lot of various financial shady things to hide who was whatever. And they had basically attained it, only that a body in the European Union told them, well, but the actual power, so who is actually making the financial decision at IAG, is still mostly in the end of non-EU when the UK does Brexit. Thus, we won't be able to be considered as a EU airline. Wow.
Screwed.
We both said cheekily yesterday when that news came up, we both said that I almost want it to happen. As in, I know some people will flame me from saying that on this show, and please do, but I always want it to happen because, you know what, let's go with it. Let's run with the ball and actually see what actually happens, right?
Yeah, I think that it will increase the pressure from business on the government to sort this out. So, but the ship may have sailed, or not actually, because none of the ports are going to be ready, but maybe it was a better one. The horse may have bolted by then, and there's nothing we can do. So I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to use horses because no cars going to be imported, right? Oh my god! Actually, and also, oh my god, Rolls-Royce also. So Rolls-Royce, of course, builds engines here in the UK. The problem they're having is that these engines designs and certifications have to be signed off by the European Aviation Safety Agency. So what they're going to do, they're moving parts of their operations from Derby to Germany.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an increasing trend, irrespective of industry. Sadly, I read a stat that $1 trillion of capital have already left the UK, but that perhaps is a conversation for a different platform.
Yes. The only thing is, could the person that did that transfer of 3 trillion, whatever, can you just show some to me? I'm going to give you my account number
there you
later.
go.
Because at least it's good news. The UK has signed an agreement with Switzerland, so that will be able still to happen. I'll be able to fly to Switzerland and back. So that, at least I have that. The rest we still don't know. We're not going to talk too much about Brexit, but it's just happening and we don't know what's going to happen. So for us, there's no way to avoid that discussion. We do not want to be political, but it's going to be very interesting to see what actually happens. Will IAG end up moving actually to Spain? I don't know, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Also, Gatwick, talking about that. Gatwick was just bought by Vinci, the French conglomerate. It's a construction conglomerate, huge, for like £3 billion. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they know a deal when they see it, I guess. I don't think it materially changes much because it was already owned by an overseas entity anyway. So I don't know how much will actually change as a result of this.
Maybe Vinci can go now into the drone business because these two seem to be linked. So, since I flew a few times the Bombardier, the A220, now that we're supposed to say that, we had that big debate about the divider of Bombardier. So we need to...
Yeah, it's very fractious.
We need to close it. Actually, Jean-François Bourque was one of the persons involved in that debate on Facebook, said that he just listened to the last podcast and he was not expecting that this discussion would last 3 podcasts. Now it's 4. He's basically saying, we're saying the same. It's a certification issue. He was not trying to get into a hotly debate. But funnily enough, that had people actually sending us pictures of the dividers. Ed Parsons was the first. I can't believe I'm posting this, but unless you're listening to the Great Layovers podcast, you will not get this. Here is a A220 divider, and he sends us the A220 divider from Air Baltic. They actually do have a divider, so that settles it. It's actually possible, so probably Swiss doesn't have the certification, doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, that's probably what it boils down to.
And also at Johnny Walker on Twitter, same, also sent us, I think the same day, a picture of the Air Baltic divider. If I had flown Air Baltic to Riga instead of flying Lufthansa, I would have seen it myself and I would have been able to settle that debate last episode. But there you go. The A220 is proving extremely popular. Delta has just added more. They are going to go for 19 total. We both said that this aircraft will be very popular.
And JetBlue taken some options at the very least. So it's proving to be, after nearly dying on the drawing board,
crazy,
to be very popular. Yeah.
Yeah. And Moxie, that is still the temporary name, I guess, but that new airline by the founder of JetBlue has signed a firm order this time to buy 60 of them, the 300, so the large versions. So yeah, it's going to be very popular. And you guys in the US are going to be able to see it because right now you have to fly Swiss and Air Baltic to see them. So it's going to be all over. We keep saying that this aircraft will be a smash hit for Airbus. It's really cool. And the one thing that was really cool, so I think I said a few episodes ago, when you fly Swiss on the Bombardier to or from Geneva, not Zurich, they are trying this new thing that instead of serving you food, they have like a bit like BA, they have a menu, you can buy a sandwich, and if you're in business class, basically you get it for free. What I tried last time, there was a plancha, so basically cure meats, right? And the cool thing is they actually give you a wooden plancha, and the wooden plancha has embossed, engraved, a picture of a 220.
That's so cool.
And you can keep it, obviously. That's really, really cool.
Wow.
By the way, they also offer, and I saw someone taking it, a fondue, moitié-moitié, which is half vacherin and half gruyere. And I could see the guy trying to eat a fondue out of this thing. So it's possible to have fondue in a Swiss flight, which actually makes sense when you think about it. It's really cool. Boeing, since we're in aircraft, Boeing won the race sales over Airbus in 2018. In aircraft value, by a lot, apparently. In sales, it's very close. Airbus was a bit late disclosing its sales, and Airbus was able to add a few of these 220s at the very end. So they actually almost have the same number of sales, but Clearly, Boeing is winning that race. That doesn't mean a lot, but still.
No, I mean, especially with the consolidation that's happening, Bombardier essentially getting out of the airline market, and with the Embraer and Boeing JV, I think now a done deal. It's a two-horse race essentially. No disrespect to de Havilland and ATR, but for the jets anyway. And I don't, they'll still both do really well, even if one quote unquote beats the other.
The third one might be over the years, the Comac 919, I think it's called. The third one just did its maiden flight test flight. So they're going to sell a lot of those in China, I'm sure. And probably actually abroad. When you fly, especially in Asia, when you fly I was in the Philippines, I'm pretty sure those guys would actually buy them. I think initially Europe and the US will be a bit like, no. And then they will end up buying them like in 20, 30 years. But at the beginning, I think in Asia, you will see lose a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they'll get some decent discounts for Chinese airlines.
Talking about the Boeing 737 MAX, which was the smash hit for Boeing in terms of sales. Have you seen that story of the one from Norwegian Air that is stranded in Iran?
Yeah, it had to divert to Shiraz, which is somewhere I've always wanted to go.
Yeah, me too.
And they can't get the part into the country. They need to fix it because of the embargoes. Boeing
crazy.
being a U.S. company, and then these reasonably new embargoes means it's basically stuck there. And it's been 3 weeks.
December 14th, I was looking at the date. December 14th, they had an engine issue. It was going from Dubai to Oslo, and they landed. And now it's stuck because they cannot get the part. I don't know how they're going to solve that one, actually.
Yeah, exactly. How do you get around that? I don't know. I have no idea.
Maybe somebody has to get the blueprints from Boeing, but manufacture in China and something like that. I have no idea what's going to happen. Or maybe they'll have an exception. I have no idea. Not fun for Norwegian, though, I'm sure.
No, when you've got a brand new plane just sitting there not making money.
And obviously, talking about Boeing, so they've been looking into, the kind of aircraft we're going to fly in the 30 to 40 years. And they've just released a new wing design, the transoceanic truss-braced wing. Have you seen the picture?
I have seen it. It almost looks like the Cessna style, where you've got the struts coming from the wing into the fuselage, and then a top, the wing across the top of the fuselage. It's bizarre.
And it says that it allows to have much lighter wings, ultra thin, because of these trusses that are basically supporting the wing, like longer wings as well, that will allow to go at further speeds, max speeds as well, and increase the altitude. And by increasing altitude, the area thinner, so you can go faster. And it's fascinating. They actually work with NASA to build that. So probably one day we'll have one of these things. It's really fascinating, I find.
Yeah, and I like that they continue to innovate, and maybe we won't see it in this incarnation, but we'll see the technology that came out of the thought process and the design process. And I mean, that's what got us to composites for most of the airliners that are made today. That type of process, looking 20 to 30 years into the future. Another
that they've just released, actually, so it's not the future, is the BBJ 777X. So, of course, it's based on a 777. It's a business jet, so it's not for you and me, although layovers could try to buy one for our own use. The interesting thing about that one is that it can connect every city in the world. It's the aircraft that flies the further. I think it has a range of 20,000 kilometers, which is insane.
That is insane. Back to the problem that we keep talking about, which is who the hell wants to fly for that long?
Well, only CEOs and very rich people, because this aircraft doesn't solve the problem that Qantas wants to solve with London to Sydney and back, because obviously it's much lighter because you don't have the cargo and you don't have like 400 passengers in it. Yeah. Right? If you were to add that on that design, well, it won't work.
It won't, exactly.
Since I was reading that news, I was wondering what are the current longest flights in the world to start 2019, probably, because I'm seeing some of our listeners are trying to do these ones. I'm not sure, like Alex just mentioned, that we want to sit in these flights for long. So the longest is Singapore, New York, which just restarted, 18 hours, 30 minutes for almost 10,000 miles with a 350 ULR. The second one is Qatar, Auckland to Doha. It's 9,000 miles for 17 hours and 50 minutes in a 777-200 long range. The third one is Perth to London. I think Ed Parsons did it also around 9,000 miles for 17 hours and 25 minutes in a Dreamliner -9. The fourth is Dubai to Auckland in a 380 for 17 hours and 10 minutes, a bit less than 9,000 miles. The fifth one is Singapore Airlines Singapore to LA. 8,717 miles for 17 hours and 50 minutes. It's always interesting that these two do not correlate. Sometimes you have less distance but longer time. Actually.
Yeah.
That's in a A350 as well. United. Do you want to be sitting in United for 17 hours and 30 minutes from Houston to Sydney in a Dreamliner? Qantas from Dallas, Fort Worth to Sydney in a 380. Then Philippines Airlines from Manila to New York in a 350. They don't need the ULR. It's a regular 350 for 16 hours and 35 minutes. Number 9. Tide, United and Singapore Airlines from San Francisco to Singapore, 17 hours and 20 minutes for United and 17 hours and 35 minutes for Singapore. Why? Because United goes faster with a Dreamliner than Singapore with an Airbus 350. And the 10th longest one for a little bit less than 8,500 miles for 16 hours and 50 minutes is Johannesburg to Atlanta. Cobus, you need to do that one. 777-200 LR. There you go. So guys, if you do any of those in 2019, please simply reach out to us, send us pictures, send us this picture in picture that I've been requesting. One of the other resolutions that I've promised is that I will end up actually putting them on Instagram and doing a better job of playing with that Instagram account of layovers, because right now it's only me talking in lounges, which is not very interesting. So, to Hong Kong. First, Hong Kong Airlines. What's going on with the Hong Kong Airlines, Alex?
Well, there was this article that came out day before yesterday on ATW News, which said basically that they have strenuously and vehemently denied that they are about to be liquidated, which means they're probably about to be liquidated. Because, how often do you talk in those terms when there's nothing to, you just get on with it and you do it. But there was this article that basically came out and said they're going to sue people for talking about it in these terms. Again, and the problem is that, they've grown aggressively. They changed tack to be a full service airline, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. They seem to be doing pretty well. They seem to be growing and growing and growing. But there were some pretty worrying signs. Firstly, 5 of their directors resigned in 6 months in the second half of last year. The vice chairman left as well. One of their big insurance companies said they were withdrawing coverage for passengers in the event that the airline folds, which basically the writing's on the wall there. Those are pretty big signs. But then the people that own it, which is H&A, which have had lots of financial problems over the last 18 months. They sued Hong Kong Airlines for 854 million Hong Kong dollars in unpaid debt. So the whole thing is just it's just going crazy. But they've said that this lawsuit is against Hong Kong Airlines Consultation Services, which is some offshoot that's run by a former Hong Kong Airlines. The whole thing is shady. I've never flown on them. I've heard from people who
I was about to ask you, so is it good?
I've heard nothing but good things about them. Now, they're unrelated, at least now, to Hong Kong Express, who I have flown, but it's not looking good.
It's not. My only experience of Hong Kong Airlines was I used their lounge at Hong Kong Airport. I'm trying to remember which airline gave me the right to do that. But yeah, I did that, and it was okay. I mean, when you have the pier and others, you probably don't want to go there, but that's it. But I mean, this whole story seems, wow. Well,
I mean, the Hong Kong government is rumored, I mean, this was in the South China Morning Post, this fact that they're talking about a contingency plan because it's Chinese New Year coming up, and the last thing that you want is one of the big 4 airlines in Hong Kong stopping right at the peak season. So we'll see. It would be such a shame. Cathay had been incredibly aggressive in stifling competition in Hong Kong, and I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. So I want Hong Kong Airlines to succeed, just as I want Cathay Dragon and Hong Kong Express to succeed as well.
Since you talked Cathay, and before I'm going to go to my own flights with them, everybody talked about Cathay just before the turn of the year because they had mispriced some of their flights in first class. I'm going to quote the two of them. You could get, what was it, Da Nang to New York for $675, or you could get Hanoi to Vancouver for less than $1,000. These usually go for like $15,000. So that was just a few hours, and that was also just before I actually booked mine, which I'm incensed. I would have not gone from Hanoi to Vancouver, but I'm just saying, I was like, why did I miss them? So, did they actually honor those flights?
Unusually and incredibly, yes, they are absolutely going to honor them. And I think good on them. They actually put out a tweet saying, Happy New Year. And to those who bought our good/very good surprise quote-unquote special on New Year's Day, yes, we made a mistake, but we look forward to welcoming you on board with your ticket issued. Hope
That's
this
awesome.
will make your... Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was really cool of them to do that.
I'm sure, I mean, first of all, it was a few hours, and I'm sure they run the numbers. You had to be, all these like super geeks that have their blogs about how do you make miles, they jumped on them. But regular people, by the time the news were on, it was too late already. So probably the actual number of seats sold through these were not that big.
No.
They made a quick calculation to say, you know what, compared to our usual load and whatever, for the PR reason, it's better not to slash those guys out. And, so it's good for them.
Absolutely. It was, like you say, they ran the numbers and looked at the potential PR value positively or negatively, depending on what decision they made, and they went with it. And I admire them for that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
BA, are you listening?
Did you... Did you get any news? So it was not the point, but did you get any news from your hack thing? Nothing, right?
No. Yeah, actually, I did.
Oh.
Yeah. In fact, my credit card was used.
Shoot.
My BA one, which was part of the hack. And the reason I was able to find out is that I got 2 notifications, text messages from Amex with somebody trying to get the 2-factor authentication code.
Oh, wow.
And I called Amex and they're like, yep, this is almost, they didn't say it is, but they said this is almost certainly related to the British Airways hack. They were great as always. And I said, well, why would it be such a long time between them getting the data? And they said they always wait until the holidays because the volumes increase exponentially and the transactions are much more likely to be overlooked. So I thought that was very interesting. So if you had a BA Amex or any card and you were part of the BA hack, look at your bank statement or your credit card statement incredibly carefully over the next
because
months.
Amex, we said that every time we talked about that hack, Amex are very good at monitoring that for you, and they have very good flagging detection systems, etc. But if you have maybe a high street bank, like a normal retail bank, maybe you won't overlook, and they might not buy a car with it, guys. They might buy little things that you might overlook, like you said. Wow. Did you have to cancel your card, or is it just,
Yeah, the card had to be canceled, and they sent me one, I think, within 48 hours. It arrived within 48 hours. And actually, I had noticed an increase in posts on Flyer Talk in the British Airways forum about these. And of course, the apologists just jump in and said it was nothing to do with the hack. But it still confounds and flabbergasts me that nothing has been done about this. This I've spent almost a full day's worth of hours on this hack since it happened, and there's been, other than the free credit monitoring, that there's been nothing, not even an apology that wasn't clearly a PR apology.
That sucks. We had actually a lot of messages from, of course, our listeners, as we always do. As you might have understood, we're not going to cover any of these for 2 reasons. First, because lack of time. We have a hard stop during our recording day today. We were able to manage to do an episode, so this is great. And the second one is because I literally prepared this show with Alex 30 minutes before we started. Didn't have time to gather all your messages, but we had, I remember, quite a lot of messages that are people talking about BA and how they've acted with them on that hack and how disappointed they were. So yeah, it's I don't know, disappointing. Yeah,
it is very disappointing and very frustrating as well.
Are you still thinking of moving your miles loyalty to, for instance, AA or? Because
I
was thinking-
don't know
thinking-
enough about miles to know what
Yeah,
calculations I need to make.
Me too.
And
No,
also,
it's fine.
I like BA short haul. I really
me
do.
too.
I think those crews are so good, and I would, I'll still fly them. Of course, I'll still fly them. I have to, but I feel there's something that would make me feel sad about not being a BA Gold customer and being an American, whatever the equivalent is.
I was interviewing for something else, and I met the founder of First Direct. It's a very
the
famous
HSBC spinoff.
it's a very famous bank here in the UK, guys. And the guy is a serial entrepreneur, has done amazing things. And he was telling the story of BA, how BA 20 years ago, and I don't have the story in front of me, I'll repeat that in another episode, had hired, and that's how they transformed themselves. Someone who trained the entire company about culture, created these famous, the Club Europe, Club World, and First Class, all these brands, but not only simply the brand as a name, but actually what a brand is, which is the actual experience, what it actually means. Created from a very so-so airline to become one of the best airlines. The thing is, and he said that to me, the following CEO, after he was replaced, was an accountant. And that guy simply took a look at the numbers and said, okay, we have this, we have an Excel spreadsheet, and this is how much money you make at profitability, and canceled most of the training programs. And this is where we end up today, when you have a shell of what it used to be in terms of the brand. And sadly, you can feel all the cracks because of lack of training. It's just not what it used to be.
No,
and I never flew
not.
BA at that time. You probably have, but I've never flown, because I was not living here. I never flown BA in that time of what it's, was the great company that was better than anything else. It was the Emirates of the day, right? And
Yeah, it really was. I don't remember, to be honest with you, what they were like in those days, because I was just flying Cathay, because that's where I lived. But we beat this subject to death, but I'm still not sure what changes and need to happen. And you read all the trip reports on Flyer Talk, and I don't defend BA long haul at all. But if someone talks badly about the short haul, I jump in there and say this is different to the vast majority of the flights that I've had lately. So I think you were just unlucky.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There was, I think it was on Instagram, I'm not sure, Jez_K, I'm not sure if I think he's a he, actual real name, who said, I'm normally a defender of BA, but I'm down on them this week. I flew back overnight from Hong Kong in first, I assume to London, and they had no champagne loaded on New Year's Eve.
Oh, that's a pretty big oversight. I wonder what the reason was.
So the reason, he was explained that the reason was apparently the crew on the way in, because they stocked the champagne from Heathrow to Hong Kong, went over the limit. Probably it was because it was the end of the year. So they used all the stock that was supposed to be on the way back. Fine. They shouldn't have done that. But the thing is, if you have something like first class, even if it's not in your usual stocking policy to buy champagne in Hong Kong, just do it. It's New Year's Eve. I mean, crying out loud. Somebody just said, okay, we don't have any champagne. What's the contingency here? I mean, and okay, guys, entitlement to first class, New Year's Eve, but come on. It's a minute.
I mean, it's a missed, and actually, in a way, it's an opportunity for a huge service recovery.
Yes.
To say, we've run out of champagne, but somebody's actually gone to the store to get some. There's a story there. It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Yes. And that's exactly what Mike Harris, the founder of First Direct, was telling me, was this whole training that they were doing. That's not only applies to BA, but any airline and any customer facing company. When you allow the person to say, go and fix a problem by yourself, we empower you to do that. Somebody will have done it. Mm-hmm. Somebody would have said, oh, I'm going to go like to the duty zero, as they call it in Hong Kong, and bought some champagne and find a way. And then, come on, it's the fact nobody does that. It's not by definition a measure of if they're good or bad employees, is because the company culture doesn't allow them to as well. And that's the biggest problem. And that could be actually for United, for any other airlines, guys. We're not here talking only about BA, but of course we live in the UK where we see that too many. But yeah, I agree. Short haul, I flew, I'll talk about that in the next episode. I flew from Helsinki to Heathrow last month, and it was great. It's always great in short haul.
It really is. I mean, the physical product is nothing to write home about, but the food, because of the dough and co change and the service, Not always, but more often than not, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on, still in Hong Kong, but since you had told me, so I was flying the 1st of January. I was in the morning of the 1st of Jan to go to the Philippines, actually. I'll come to that. Our airport of today is based in the Philippines. I go into T3 and I'm looking at the Qantas lounge. I said, well, thank God Alex just told me that I shouldn't go there. And I went directly to the first class lounge at Cathay, which is great to start the year off. There's no pizza, but Glucode sent us on Instagram. They are now serving pizza, Alex. They are now serving pizza in flight on Emirates. He sent us a picture from Dubai to San Francisco, at the bar at the back of the upper deck of the 380 with pizza. How awesome is that?
It does seem like one of those things where, you've got the equipment on the airplane. Surely pizza's like a no-brainer. They sent the pizza to the ISS, Pizza Hut, or was it Mir? One of them. If they can do that, and it had to last 60 days, if they can do that, then we can do it on airplanes. I'm not saying it's going to be any good, but it feels like one of those things where, it'll be better than a steak.
And Johannes_P on Instagram also sent us a picture, and I must have missed that, of a pizza in the Lufthansa business lounge at Tegel. And I went there and I didn't look for it. Apparently there's pizza. Oh my God. Anyway, so see, not only the Australians are doing pizzas in their lounges, but again, I didn't go to the Qantas lounge. Went to the Cathay one. Was great. The flight, you know what? I hadn't realized that, but in 2018 I didn't fly Singapore and I didn't fly Cathay.
Really?
No. So I was so happy to have my first flight of this year with Cathay. Obviously, so it was great service, found a very good deal, partly with miles because I was going for a private reason, not for business. And you know what? I was so happy because I kept mentioning last year, talking about all the seats we've done. Are they good for tall people or not? This remains the best business seat for me in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not fully private. I mean, of course, everybody has a Lexus. It's not fully private as in, there's no like big dividers or doors or whatever. For me, it stays no competition, the best seats in business in the air. I love it so much. I was like, I put myself in the seat and it was like, welcome home, Paul. And I was like so freaking happy. And I hope that they continue on that seat because it's just amazing.
I love that seat as well. It's so good. It's so comfortable. It's so well designed. And I know it's a riff on a fairly common seat platform, but the way or the optional extras, if you will, that Cathay have done and the little touches, I think are just so good. So good.
Yeah, absolutely. You flew something similar on Finnair last year or 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah, and the 350. And it was fine. American had the same seat. Who else has? I mean, a lot of people have that seat, but generally it's very good. I liked the American one. In fact, I'm trying to find ways to fly American business class again, but I keep not staying for the weekend, so it's just an impossibility.
Yes, I'm going to explain at the end of the show what I'm going to do soon to avoid paying super big prices to the US. So they still have, however, issues. I flew only 777s, no 350 this time because they fly usually from Gatwick and I was flying from Heathrow. At least on the 777, the seats are good. On the 360, I read the other day that Safran took over Zodiac, so now it's called Safran. They're still fixing the seats. Still, if you go to Fly Reports online, you can still see that they're using tape to hold them together, that even the lavatories in the 350 sometimes in Cathay are being taped as well to some of the appliances will not. It's a bit rough. Too bad, but at least for me it was 777. I arrive at Hong Kong and I have about 13 hours on purpose. I needed to buy actually clothes because I'm going for a wedding in the Philippines, and it's summer and I'm a guy, so I'm basically looking for the clothes to buy maybe like 5 days before I need to go, right? But also, I'm in London, and in London it's winter season, but nothing for the beach. It's like it's a wedding on the beach. I'm like, oh my god. So then I go to Hong Kong, hoping that I will find some. Then I didn't realize that in Hong Kong it was 14 degrees Celsius. It's also winter season. It was nothing, but at least I went to Din Tai. So yeah, I had like great food in the city. So that was cool. What I didn't know, talking about airline and cafe, they've closed, and I don't know when you went there last time. They've closed their arrival lounge. There's no more arrival lounge by Cathay at the Hong Kong airport.
I didn't know that. That's weird.
Yeah, so it's been taken over by Plaza Premium, which has a so-so reputation, but apparently it's okay. I didn't go for it because, again, I went to the city instead. But they were warning all the passengers that had access, like me. They were saying, oh, we're sorry, apologies for the inconvenience. There's no more arrival lounge at Hong Kong. They're not announcing that they're refurbishing or they're like planning a new one. It's clearly they closed it. So if you want to have access to one, you need to use the one from Plaza Premium. It's accessible with Priority Pass, and probably if you have a business class or first class ticket on Cathay. But it's bizarre, right?
That's weird in your flagship not to have an arrivals lounge.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I had never done it. Had you done it?
No.
So, you're sure to be ironed in Hong Kong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, have I? No, I don't think I have.
So, of course, then I went to the pier. What an amazing lounge. Still my favorite and your favorite in the world. I don't think it will change this year.
Nope.
Interestingly, I don't know, because you've been several times. When it was opened, I think it was 2 years ago, reopened, a year and a half, the partnership with the Peninsula, that was super good quality. And then they actually gave it to Plaza Premium. And a lot of people were complaining. And I remember seeing a bit of a dip in the quality of the service and the quality of the food, not like something big, but still. Now they've actually kicked out Plaza Premium and gave it to Sodexo, which also does the Virgin Clubhouse. And it's much better again, Alex.
Oh, that's good. I haven't been there. I've been to Hong Kong, but I haven't been in that lounge. Oh, I was there in June.
I don't know when
That's I was just about to ask you that.
I'm not sure. It just because I hadn't been in a year, as I said, last time was 2017. I remember the last time I went in 2017 was like, it's still awesome. I mean, the lounge itself, of course, but there was something about the soft product that didn't work for me. But I was really like talking about details. And this time it was again great. That's why I looked it up. I said, is it someone different? Yeah. So now the people running it, Sodexo. I've never been to the Virgin Clubhouse, but he always has great ratings.
The one in Heathrow?
Yeah,
that's a great lounge. I haven't been in years, but it was. I used to go a lot when I flew Virgin regularly, and that was I hope still is a great lounge because it was outstanding.
So and I had Dan Mien, of course, in the pier. Don't be allergic to nuts if you try that, because otherwise you're gonna die. There's only that. But that was freaking amazing. Also took wonton noodles and soups. It was really fantastic. The food is in that restaurant of the pier first class is amazing. I also used the what do you call that? The day resting thing.
Oh, those little cubbies. Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, because again, I had 13 hours. I went in the morning, had some food, bought the stuff. I went to DGI as well, the flagship store, and I spent maybe 5 hours, and I came back, and then I had still a little bit more, and I was a bit jet lagged, so I said I'm going to rest for like an hour or two. Interestingly, I thought these were actually rooms. They are, but they tell you that out of courtesy, I don't think you're allowed to stay more than 2 hours. I mean, they won't kick you out, but they kind of say, please, there are only 8 of them. So I think it's 2 hours. Yeah, it's fair. Yeah. Anyway, what I also realized, because now that they've opened the midfield concourse, and I don't know if you've seen that, because I'm OCD, I look at details. And the signs will slightly be changed, because before the opening of the midfield concourse, if you were between gates 33 to 80, you were basically would tell you, go to the people mover instead of walking. Yes. And now for the gates 33 to 40, it basically tells you to walk.
Yeah.
They've changed a little bit the sign.
They have. And I don't know what the status of Hong Kong Airport was when you were there vis-a-vis the food court situation, but you almost had to go down to that end anyway to eat, because the rest of it was just so thrashed.
Was it?
Yeah, so I'm guessing that when you come through outbound immigration, it wasn't a construction site.
No, it was okay, actually. So maybe they've done it.
Oh, good. Well, then I need to go back and look.
Or maybe knowing that it's a very busy period, they stopped work for a little bit. I don't know, because again, it was like I was literally there January 2nd. I don't know. Yeah. No, it didn't. The rest, like, I think you said that. Yeah, you actually said that when you talked about Hong Kong. It's true that you were right. The rest of Hong Kong is construction site everywhere.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, and it's actually funny because that made me, again, I'm OCD and I love reading stuff on Wikipedia. So I get into this rabbit hole after looking at this sign change. And actually, there are gates that do not exist. I didn't realize that. Actually, for instance, Gate 5 to 8 do not exist because now they've been renumbered 500. 500 is they have another concourse, the small thing in the north.
The one where Hong Kong Express and people ride up that you have to take a bus to.
Yes. And I think, anyway, it's just funny that some gates that are, of course, it's just UI. They don't want you to get lost. They better have round numbers between gate like a 40 and 80 and not 41 and 85. And so there are gates that actually do not exist because I was walking and I was like, where is gate 5? Doesn't exist. Where is gate 9? Gate 9 is my favorite number. Doesn't exist either. Gate 72 to 80 do not exist. They did that so they simply didn't want to say gate 1 to 72. They wanted to have a signage that says gate 1 to 80, so they just went for it, but they do not exist, actually. It's really funny.
That's bizarre.
You can look it up on the maps, guys. There's a lot of gates that do not exist. It's just fun. I had too much time on my hands, clearly, when I was looking for that. I was like, oh, wow. So then Manila, I landed in Manila. So that was with 777, but that's the other seat. That's a seat you took with Cathay Dragon, I think.
Yes, which I raved about. Actually, that was it Cathay Dragon or was it Cathay? Either way, it's basically back then it was the same thing. A short haul business class seat, really, really good.
Yeah, it was really good. It's a 222, but for like a flight that takes like less than 2 hours. It's amazing, and there was food and fantastic. And the IFE the IFE was better, probably because it's newer than the IFE or the 777. The 777 IFE is a bit slow to react. You can feel that it is a few years old. I was pressing the thing, it wouldn't actually react. But it's fantastic. Again, I arrived in Manila. We covered Manila. Very lucky. There's literally no one in immigration, which never happens. I go out from plane to curb in 7 minutes. It's impossible. If you guys have ever been to Manila, that's impossible. And I then realized that I'm in the middle of the holidays. Manila was empty. I've never seen the city, even when I was living there, because of course I would come to Europe to see my parents. So I never saw it like that. It was amazing. Felt like London over the holidays. No one. I mean, it's amazing. So really amazing. The one thing though, that when we arrived in Manila, the United States just warns its citizens. I'm not one, but I read that because I was there anyway, that security at Manila Airport does not meet international standards. They urge travelers to exercise increased caution. I laughed a little bit because, they're right. I think the TSA went there and did an assessment. But they only realize that now?
Well, that must have means that it degraded even more. But also, what does more caution mean? Like, what is that? What do you get? I don't know what that means.
What do you do? What do you do? Do you look around your shoulder? I mean, honestly, I don't know what you do. Friends, they were at the wedding when they were on their way out. On their boarding pass, this little thing I just told you, this little warning, was actually taped on their boarding pass.
Really?
Probably. So if you were an American citizen, you would get that on your boarding pass, like as a little sticker on top, say, "Oh, we do not meet the security requirement. Please increase caution." Which you like. So what do I do with that now?
That's bizarre.
Yeah, that is bizarre. And then, so I stayed in Manila. I went back to Manila Airport, this time at T4, which is the domestic terminal, which is a shed, which you cannot connect from there are 4 terminals, 1, 2, 3, 4. They are not linked to each other. So you basically need to get out and take a cab, which is why I built sometimes in Manila and arrived the night before and flew the morning after, because I knew this impossible to get. Yeah. Now that I realized the city was empty, I could have made it. Otherwise, in normal setting, it's impossible. Which, thank God, actually allowed me to find clothes for the wedding, finally, just last second.
Wow.
Because that's summer. And so I arrived at T4, still a shed. Last time I flew there, it was 10 years ago. and it hasn't changed, and it's a disaster. But it's fun. It's almost endearing how much is a disaster. They have like, it's 5 gates. Basically, imagine, Alex, it's the size of the room you're in now, and the 5 gates are next to each other. So you're like, why do you even have numbered gates? Because at the end of the day, you just go out
one. Yeah, exactly.
and you walk to the aircraft. They also, it's like these things, they don't make sense. They also have like a sequence numbers on the boarding passes. So on those, for some reason, on the way there, I had sequence number 2, and on the way back, I had sequence number 7. Only that when they actually do the announcement, they say, sequence 1 to 10, please come now. You're like, what? Why would you have sequence number if everybody basically boards at the same time? It just doesn't make
it doesn't make any sense. Probably just built into the system, and it would be more effort to undo it than just say,
yeah,
this is how we do it.
So I was flying CebGo, which is an offshoot or a licensee, I'm not sure, of Cebu Pacific, ATR 72 propeller plane. I had the front row. It's the same price. I just was looking. It was. I knew that these flights are very busy over the holidays. I booked them like a month ago, and so really cool, super noisy. I hadn't flown an ATR forever. Have you?
Last time I flew one was maybe 5 years ago from Krakow, maybe.
Oh yeah, they used to. I remember. Yeah, they used to have some of those. You're right, actually. So I'm 2A. It's great. It's endearing, because they. So I didn't realize, by the way, when I bought the ticket, I bought a ticket that included some food. So they gave me this sandwich. I was the only person with a freaking sandwich in the entire aircraft. I mean, it was okay. I mean, I tried it. It was pretty good. It was a chicken sandwich. And the crew is super young, and they have to, a bit like probably Ryanair, but like in a better way, they have to run competitions. They shout in the PA, they said, who can show us something yellow? The color of the airline is yellow. And the first person that actually shows something yellow by raising his or her hand gets a prize. And then, who can show us a boarding pass? And the first person that shows a boarding pass gets a prize. And then, who can show, and I can see she hesitates, a cell phone charger. And you see people scrambling in their bags. And I don't know what the prices were because I didn't really participate in the game, but it's super endearing, right? And
I like stuff like that.
Yeah, it's an hour flight, and it's fun, and it's super noisy. I didn't realize, by the way, because I booked out of, probably because I knew the brand Cebu Pacific, there's another airline called Skyjets, and that would have been for you because they have Avroliners.
Oh, man.
They do have Avroliners. One of them actually used to belong to BAs because I went on Airfleet. And the thing is, I had friends of mine, Mark and Cecilia, they were in the same shed, T4, waiting for their flight. Their flight was leaving 20 minutes after mine. But because they had a jet engines and I had an ATR, which is propeller, they arrived 10 minutes before me.
Oh, hilarious.
So they were waiting on the little boats that took us to the island we were going to, and I was like, how? Oh yeah, jet engines. Oh my God. Anyway, it's fun. So yeah, it was really, really cool to fly an ATR. Thank God I had noise cancelling headphones. Yeah, the funny thing on these ATRs, they load the luggages in front of you. So when the door, which is, my seat was 2A, I think. The door that opens in front is not the pilot, it's actually the cargo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. I like that. There's something kind of neat about that.
Yeah, it's this very different type of aircraft. So, and you board, obviously, from the back, which means when you have 2A like me, you actually don't last one to exit the aircraft, which I don't mind. I mean, I was just going, but it's just really, really funny. Funnily, CebGo, all their announcements are pre-recorded. They never have, besides the competition I just mentioned, you never have actually someone taking the PA. So for instance, we're waiting on the ground and it's really hot. We're talking like 30 degrees plus. And of course the engines are not running. So the AC is not running. And suddenly they play this. We sincerely apologize for the cabin temperature. This will improve as the aircraft gains altitude. Thank you for bearing with us. And you're like, okay.
As a recorded PA.
Yeah. They had that as a pre-recorded message. When we're about to start the taxiing, suddenly it goes, in accordance with safety regulations, your crew will now take their seats prior to takeoff. They explain you every little bit, but all is pre-recorded. It's really funny.
I've seen a lot of airlines do that just as a way to alleviate, crew resources, right? I mean, they, instead of having to stand there and make the announcement, they just press a button on the panel there and it does it for them. Yeah. So I can understand. I think it takes away a lot of the personality, but also, I mean, it saves time, and more often than not, they're much easier to understand.
But then again, you know what? You say you're right. It takes off the personality, but at the same time, that allowed the crew was super cool, super young. That allowed the crew to actually dedicate their time on us, when they were just doing the service, when they were talking to us. So it played well. It's a very, very short flight. So at the end of, we take off, and then because also that, it's a propeller, so it takes forever to reach cruising altitude. And as soon as we get there, you have a sandwich, and like, oh, we're going down.
Time to go, yeah.
So I think in terms of time management for the two, I think there were only two crew. It works well, and they're really engaging with us. So I think it's a good balance. But it's funny to have a very different experience in terms of how we fly usually. On the ground, and I sent you the picture, on the ground in Manila Airport, you still have the Xiamen Air 737 that skid off maybe last August, and they try to... So it lost its engine when it skid off the runway, so it's still around there, and they try to hide obviously the name and everything. So they put like these big wraps over the aircraft. Now the wind has blown some of them away, so you can almost read Xiamen Air. So it defeats the purpose. And you were telling me, so who's paying to remove an aircraft like that? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. I would be fascinated to know. I mean, if it's clearly a write-off. Right, because otherwise they would have spent the money. But now they've probably got their insurance money. Who owns it now? I wonder if it was a leased airplane or what. I mean, it's a bizarre situation.
And it's right there. You cannot miss it, guys. It's like in front of Terminal 3 when you taxi from Terminal 4, etc. You have this big thing under wraps. It looks like a Christmas gift, only that I wish we got something like that as a Christmas gift, Alex, but we haven't. So a few more things about these flights. Yeah, so Manila Airport on the way back, I was flying from Manila to Hong Kong, obviously, so same aircraft, same setup as the way there. So Manila Airport has two runways, but one runway, so let's put it another way. Taxiing, and then we're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. The pilot takes on the PA, and you can see the tone of voice is like he's exasperated. Well, Manila only has one runway that is able to take heavies, and they decided to prioritize landings. We literally had, I think, 10 landings before we were able to take off. And you could feel the exasperation in his voice, like, why are we not taking off? But he couldn't say that, obviously, but just the tone of voice was like, let's get out of here. That was super fun. Before that, sorry, I'm not going into a logical order, and I'm boring Alex with my stories.
No, because these are places I've never been. So
of course, Cathay Lounge in the Terminal 3. So that's new international terminal. New, it's not new, but hear the episode about Manila that we've done, and you'll understand. It's the best one, so it's great. It's supposedly open all day long. I arrived there. It's closed, and like the door won't open. We're a few passengers in front. We're like, what's going on here? So thank God I had a priority pass, and I went to check one that I never had done. It's called Skyview. It's one thing that I found very interesting when you enter. Skyview is also being used by Emirates, for instance, as a third-party lounge. You have two desks, and one desk is for priority pass users, and one desk is for airline users, and
That's
then you
smart.
have two rooms as well. So I was in a room from priority pass users. It was a glass pane in between, so you could see the other. It's a similar room, like as in a mirror. I think it's pretty smart.
Very smart, because the process for going in on priority pass is a little bit time consuming.
Yeah.
So you can, I've seen it at a couple of lounges, especially in Gatwick, where there's a long queue because it just takes time.
And I don't know if it's because it's used by Emirates or if they had I've rarely seen such. So the lounge in itself is nothing special. The decor is okay, but there's nothing special. But the service was insane. I arrived there as soon as I choose a seat. There's a glass of water that arrives next to me. I'm like, okay, so I stand up and I want to look at what is there. Oh, there's a beer. I take a San Miguel. As soon as I come back, clearly someone had seen me with the can of beer, because there was a glass for beer waiting for me at my table.
Really?
I sit and I'm like, what's happening here? So I'm starting to pour my beer, and somebody brings me a plate of nuts.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tiny lounge, so of course they can see the interaction. But I just find that the fact that they were so attentive to these little details, and I don't need someone bringing me a plate of nuts, but it was outstanding.
I love that. That's so cool.
Some of them were clearly staff, but there was one guy that clearly seemed to be like probably the manager. I had taken like a little sandwich, these tiny sandwiches. The plate was empty. As soon as the plate was empty, the manager himself came, said hello, and took my plate away. You're like, not even seen that like in super, fancy lounges around the world when you're supposed to have like first class service. It's
such a service culture, though, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. But it was really noticeable. And then I went back to the Cathay Lounge, great lounge, honestly. It's one of the newest, so it's very similar to what you would expect, Alex, to a lounge in Heathrow, for instance. So very, very similar, the same decor and everything. So it's really good. What else wanted to say? Yeah, the food in Cathay, obviously, you like it as much as I do. Stir-fried beef, my God, that was amazing. But because you've lived there, I have a question. I never thought about asking you that. When they give you the plate of food, for them, the opening of the food is fruit. You look at, the order, the menu. The menu says fruit, salad, main course, cheese, dessert.
Huh. I haven't actually noticed that.
I was about to, okay. So I was like, is it a thing that they do in Hong Kong? Because it's fine, but I
haven't experienced that. No, I don't know if that's a cultural thing.
I don't know. They have a new menu at the way they display the menu. It's like a A4, like you're reading a newspaper, actually. That's pretty cool, actually.
That's a nice way of doing it.
Absolutely.
A bit more tangible and real and not airporty.
Exactly. Back to Hong Kong. And in Hong Kong, I had one night at the Regal Hotel, which is the airport hotel. I'd never done it. Pretty good, actually. I was surprised. And you have a story about that because as soon as I arrived there, you tell me, Paul, you need to go to, China Coast Pub.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why?
My very first job when I was, 15 or 16 was as a bartender at the original China Coast Pub, which was at the Regal Airport Hotel at Kai Tak.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I love that there's a China Coast at the new airport hotel at Chap Lak Kok, and it's very different. The one in Kai Tak was much more like the Raffles. The long bar and the Raffles. So it had not as sort of colonial as that, but it was much more dark wood, and the new one is a little bit more modern. Yeah. But I do like that it's there, and they're usually very friendly in there, and it's kind of almost like an underground bunker underneath the reception.
I was looking for it. I was like, where the hell is it? So I was very lucky, by the way, because when I go to check in to my room, the guy clearly, they have this little tag with their name, and there's a French flag. So I switched to French. The guy is super happy. He gave me a free upgrade. So I had this massive room I had like a garden, Mike, for crying out loud, which was awesome to actually see the planes taking off. Anyway,
wow.
The point is that I go back to that guy and say, but where the hell is the China? Because I was expecting it to be at the same level as the lobby or something, but you have to go like 2 sets of stairs down, and it's under the lobby or something, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's underneath the lobby. Like I said, it's kind of like a weird like bunker type thing.
But very good, very good, very good. The beers and very good food. So it was really cool. I stayed there for an hour. It was perfect. And then, last mention about Hong Kong before, because I know we have to close the show soon. I never really thought about it before that day. I broke... At the airport we're going to cover, I broke my Sony, which I've been bashing you guys for years now, my headset, noise cancelling Sonys. And I'm like, I need to buy something new, or I want to buy something new because in Hong Kong the prices are really, really good. And I ended up choosing to buy... This year for me is the year of minimalism, whatever BS that means, but I want to reduce the number of clutter I have with me when I travel. So for instance, I bought the DJI Osmo Pocket, which is very small. That backpack, guys, I mentioned to Peak Design, I want to travel with less. And I say, you know what? I'm not going to go for this big thing. I want to go for something smaller. And I went to buy the Bose QC20. So I went back to Bose after years of telling you that Sony is the best, and I still think it is, but well, the ones that you put in ear, awesome. The point is, the shop of Bose is not airside, it's landside. They have a lot of shops I never thought about, never realized that there are a lot of shops before clearing immigration security at Hong Kong. It's not, usually in airports you have maybe like, a little kiosk for little things and maybe newspapers outlets, and that's it. Then you have the usual luggage thing, obviously, but then you have like Muji, you have Bose, you have 2 electronic stores, it's crazy.
There's a huge, like at the end of the check-in desks before security, there's that long strip of, and I tell you where's even better is Terminal 2 at Hong Kong has got just as much shops.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow. Wow. Okay, anyway, so that's now enough. I went to the ball shop. Anyway, that's really, really fascinating. The one thing that struck me, that's the last thing I'm going to say about Hong Kong. Maybe you've experienced it because you were like a few months ago, and again, I hadn't been here for 1 year, and that they've implemented electronic gates for both immigration and security, and my God, they're fast.
Yeah, they had them when I was last there, but because we had the kids, we weren't able to use them.
My God, we're talked about e-gates here on the show all the time, the ones that Heathrow keeps failing, and the ones in Germany are very good, but these ones, you don't need to register. So anyone was a biometric, unlike, this stupid thing at Dubai, we need to pre-register. Anyone was a biometric document, whether it's a driver's license, a residence card, or a passport, you put your thing, that takes 5 seconds to obviously read, analyze, but then it takes a picture of you, boom, you're in. And the second time you have to actually scan your boarding pass, boom, you're in. It goes like, I will never talk to, freaking amazing. I hope they do that inbound as well soon, because you still have for foreigners to go through like and wait in line, though there were no one, but amazing. Clearly it's facial recognition and whatever, but I don't care about privacy here. It's just, you get into like in 3 seconds. It's crazy.
Yeah, I like you say, the really big thing for me will be inbound for visitors.
Yeah, really. But looking at this, because you still have the choice to go through, manned booth for both immigration outbound and security outbound, the fact that they have implemented it's open to everyone, I'm pretty sure it's a sign that they will do the same on the inbound.
That would be so good.
Oh yeah. No having to fill a landing card or anything. Anyway. So, the airport, and I'm sorry, guys, because I've been talking and Alex has not been talking a lot, but I'm really sorry, Alex.
No, not at all. This, like I said, you've been going to places that I've never even come anywhere close to, so I'm doing my research for a future trip. So,
Busuanga Airport, the one we are in, it's actually called Francisco Reyes Airport. The actual name in Sisk Usu Ga Koron. Why? Because on the airport, all the letters fell down, and there's only a few letters remaining on the big sign. So you can
oh my God, that's
that shows you the kind. The reason I went there, I went to do a wedding. I was actually officiating the wedding. Man, that is something once in a lifetime. But
that's so cool.
Being a priest at a wedding. Guys, that's a story for beers. But yeah, it's an amazing thing to be doing. So this airport is in the island of Coron, which is in the south. Well known because Palawan is very close. It's one of the best beaches in the world. Actually, I think it's Condé Nast Traveler named out of their top 10 beaches in the world. 3 are in the Philippines. We had a private island. It was a boat together and everything, but this is a little airport in the middle of the Philippines. Other airports in the Philippines are finally seeing some kind of refurbishment. For instance, Boracay is probably going to be 20 size bigger. That's probably the best beach in the Philippines. It's just reopened after I've been closed for 6 months to kind of refurbish the entire area. The airport itself is, but that one I went to, USU, so Busuanga is a shed. The door of entrance, it says entrance, is probably the same size as the door that is behind you, the door of your room you're in now. And they have 2 security, like all these airports in the world. You don't know why, because you pass the first security, which is the entrance to the terminal security, just to get into the second security, which is the departure lounge security. It's like, why would I have 2? Because probably the regulation says you have to have 2, but it just doesn't make any sense. It's tiny. There's 2 gates. And the 2 gates are basically, again, 2 doors, the size of the doors behind you, which is your room, next to each other, so you don't even know where there's 2 gates. It's very endearing. There's nothing, man, around it. There's, like, in the middle of nowhere, they can barely have, propeller planes. Of course, no big birds would be ever able to land there. But you know what? It's endearing. It's one
I like
of airports
like
you
that.
you never see anywhere else. They do announcements. Like you said earlier, they do everything as if they were big airports. They do these massive announcements. You're like, guys, we're like 20 people. Why would you go on PAs and announce to the entire region that, oh, the flight is delayed by 20 minutes? And you're like, yeah, we can see the runway in front of us. There's no aircraft. Like, there's probably a maximum of 2 aircraft at the same time. They're probably Skyjets or Philippine Airlines, and that's it. So they act as if you're in Hong Kong and Singapore, and they tell you all, and you're like, yeah, well, we're sitting in front of the runway, and there's nothing else to do. We kind of see everything you're announcing us. But it's endearing. I love it. When I land there, they deliver you the luggage. You clearly see them picking up the luggage from the ATR, and they have a seemingly belt, but the belt doesn't move. They just drop the luggage and you pick it and you leave. That's it. It takes you like a second. It's honestly, it's really cute.
I love stuff. I don't get to go to enough airports like that.
There's 1 or 2 shops in it, but when I was leaving, I arrive in the airport, and then because I have the trackers, I can see that the flight I'm supposed to take has not even left Manila. So I'm like, it's never going to take off in half an hour. So I go out again, and there's like, these guys have installed little restaurants just because, there's people around them. Maybe they have a business model, and I went to a restaurant and had like some food, Filipino food, amazing. And then next door, there's a bar. They have like maybe just 5 beers, but that's it. And it's like little sheds next to each other, next to the airport. It's really cute.
So good.
And the best thing, I sent you the picture because I don't have anything to do. I'm walking around. This is really this tiny airport. I see that I can see the runway better from an angle. So I go there with my camera, and then I see a Beech H18 right there.
So beautiful.
And delivery of this one, I'll put the pic on our Instagram account. It's just sitting there, and these things, they've stopped doing them in the 60s or something, right? And it's in a pristine condition. I've sent you the pic. Oh my God, just by that, I was super happy to see one there and waiting.
They're so beautiful.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, there's not too much more to add to that airport. It's one of the airports you'd be using if you were to go. There's lots of those in the Philippines if you were to go to the magnificent beaches. Obviously, the best thing is when you take off and when you land, you have the stunning views on the islands, on the atolls, and you're very, very low, so you see everything. Yeah, guys, just for that, go to an airport like that.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to make that my plan for 2019 because I love airports like that.
You would love it. You would actually adore it. So what are your next flights, Alex?
In a couple of weeks, I am going to Mexico City.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
How?
On Aero Mexico, which will be another
way.
first. Yeah. It's surprisingly difficult to get to Mexico City, especially through the U.S. You would think there would be 8 million flights a day.
Yeah,
but
me too.
The U.S. majors don't fly nearly as often as I thought they would. So,
wow.
And the Aeromexico flight times are really convenient. They are both late night departures from Heathrow and from Mexico City, which means we maximize our time on the ground there. So I have no idea what to expect. I'm in their economy product. I will report back because
which alliance are they with?
They're one of the founding members of SkyTeam.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I have no status whatsoever.
That will be very interesting. So that's you see, your first flight in 2019 will be exactly what a lot of people tell us to do sometimes, to go like into more regular flights and not our pointy end. And perfect. Wow. Oh, I'm very jealous. And Mexico City apparently is amazing, especially for food.
Yes, I'm looking forward to eating myself silly.
Actually, we might record before you leave. We don't know. We'll see if we can actually make it to compensate for our lack of episodes. I'm flying tomorrow morning, BA to Barcelona for a birthday and back. So T3, I might go to this American lounge. And then probably at the time when you're flying to Mexico, but probably we'll record before, I'm doing this crazy thing when I need to be in San Francisco, Sunnyvale, actually. So Sunnyvale, it would be better to fly to San Jose with BA. But I need to be the week just after I need to be in Dubai. And I was looking, the prices were like crazy because US under rule, whatever. So then what I ended up doing is I'm flying with Emirates to Dubai. I switch terminal in Dubai, and then I fly from Dubai with Cathay Pacific to Hong Kong to San Francisco. I drive to Sunnyvale, and the way back, I redo the whole thing. So that's going to be like a pretty intense day, but we're probably going to record before we do that. And on the next episode, I'll have the story of the flight to Japan with Ethiopian, with Asiana, with JAL. Very, very interesting, and I wanted to keep it for another episode. It was a long episode. Sorry, I talked a lot, Alex.
No, it's fascinating. I'm very envious of some of these trips.
Do we have a Mastication Nation coming up soon
Yes,
as well?
in fact, it should be. Well, by the time you're listening to this, it will be live.
Nice. I have something to listen in my flight tomorrow.
There you go. Yes, you will.
So I can say, what is the letter and what is it?
It is S for supplies. So all of the cooking materials that you need. And actually, like every episode, we spent half an hour talking about the best thing we ate. But it's Will's encyclopedic knowledge of the kitchen was particularly potent in this episode.
Did you skip letter Q?
What did we do for Q? I don't even remember.
Never mind, doesn't mean, because I was like expecting quinoa, but not with you. So I was like, what else?
I like quinoa, but my brother does.
Me too.
So I don't. we did quiche for Q.
Oh, I didn't listen to it yet.
Yeah.
There you go. So guys, besides this, you can listen to Alex and Will, or see Alex on his attaché. You released quite a few at the end of last year, so there's quite a lot to see. And we hope we're going to record it the next 2 weeks for episode 86. Where to? We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
And until then, safe travels.
Enjoy, guys.